I think for me, just on a personal level, is people feel like they know me as that character personally. And yes, I lived in Manhattan and I did not do anything to help myself. I would take home wardrobe. I would date my person I'm dating wardrobe. I would date my person I'm dating on the movie. I feel like even when I give interviews and I'm making some ridiculous joke, they print it and sort of print it as if like some elitist circle was saying it, because I'm known for being this Upper East Side girl that would never say something.
Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, Leslie Sloan, Sony, and others now face mounting accusations that they collectively played a role in damaging Blake Lively's public reputation. Ryan Reynolds, in particular, appears increasingly frantic to shield himself from accountability, while also attempting to protect his wife, his company, and their publicist. This sudden and urgent motion for spoliation comes across less like a legal strategy and more like a desperate attempt to bury the very evidence that could expose what Ryan, Blake, and Leslie allegedly did. According to critics, the goal seems clear: prevent Wayfair from having the facts necessary to defend themselves. Blake Lively's own filing argues that Wayfair deleted signal messages she believes would have proven there was a coordinated digital effort to harm her image. She claims that Jed Wallace, who is no longer a defendant and not someone she is actively pursuing legally, orchestrated a smear campaign against her. The move, however, is already being interpreted by some as a reaction rooted in panic, an effort to control the narrative and suppress chaos, rather than confront what might really have happened behind the scenes. Blake Lively argues that a smear campaign was launched against her and that it turned the entire internet against her in under 48 hours. She insists that the signal messages she claims Wayfair intentionally deleted, would have exposed a coordinated digital effort designed to destroy her reputation. But the evidence she submitted may be doing the opposite of what she hoped. Her timeline doesn't add up. Blake alleges that Jed Wallace used Signal to orchestrate this secret, untraceable media attack, yet Jed didn't even join the project until the 9th, after the negative press had already taken off. And even then, Blake cites only a spike in bad publicity occurring within 2 days of him getting involved, a turnaround that would be nearly impossible for one person to engineer across social media at that speed. Despite this, Blake is asking the court for sweeping relief. She wants the judge to rule that Wayfair deleted evidence, punish them financially, and, most significantly, strip them of their ability to defend themselves by claiming there was no campaign against her. In short, she's not just demanding sanctions, she wants to silence the other side entirely. And this isn't the first time she's taken this route. Blake attempted a similar strategy with Jamie Heath over the birth video dispute, where she argued for exclusion and penalty based on alleged evidence destruction. In that case, the judge rejected her request. Now the question is whether the court will see this new motion as justified or as another attempt to control the narrative when the facts don't align with the claims. The judge has already shown how he views extreme sanctions in similar disputes. In the birth video issue with Jamie Heath, Blake pushed for the same outcome she's pushing for now. Sanctions so severe they would silence the opposing side entirely. The judge rejected that request, saying Jamie could turn over the video, but he still had the right to defend himself. If that level of punishment wasn't justified in a matter involving something as sensitive as a birth video, it's unlikely the court will suddenly decide to erase Wayfair's ability to defend themselves over missing signal chats. There are far less drastic remedies available, and judges typically exhaust those before jumping to the nuclear option Blake is demanding. What makes the situation even more ironic is that, through her own filings, Blake may have unintentionally revealed more about Wayfair's defense than anyone outside the case had previously seen. Instead of burying the narrative, her aggressive legal strategy is pulling pieces of it into the public eye. And with Ryan Reynolds, his production company, and publicist Leslie Sloan all intertwined in his filings, it's not hard to see why they'd prefer that those details stay out of view. The more she pushes, the more the curtain lifts, and the more apparent it becomes that someone is terrified of what might be exposed if this story plays out publicly instead of being quietly sealed away. Ryan Reynolds, his company, and Leslie Sloan want this case buried because the last thing they want is a courtroom where anyone can accuse them publicly of orchestrating Blake's downfall. By trying to block Wayfair from defending themselves, they're effectively trying to seal away any proof of Ryan's involvement and keep his alleged behavior off the record. Meanwhile, Blake is pushing for Wayfair to respond to every one of their affirmative defenses and disclose the exact defenses they intend to use at trial. Interrogatory number 7, answered by Justin Boney, is particularly revealing. The same question was issued to multiple people involved, including Jamie Heath, Jen Ale, Melissa Nathan, with only slight variations. But Justin's response stands out given how central he is to these accusations. The interrogatory Blake submitted asked, "Identify in reasonable detail all factual and legal basis for your contention that the criticism against Miss Lively on social media during and after August 24th was entirely organic." After objecting to certain wording, Wayfair gave a detailed answer. They stated that It Ends With Us, the novel, the film, and Blake's casting sparked massive public interest from the beginning. Negative commentary had already started the moment her casting was announced and intensified as paparazzi photos surfaced showing wardrobe choices selected by Lively herself. Rumors of conflict between Blake, the director, and the cast only fueled the fire. And critically, they noted that social media speculation escalated before August 24th, driven largely by Blake and other cast members unfollowing the responding party, and by the responding party's noticeable absence from promotion. They further explained that social media attention intensified as the film entered marketing and press cycles. Gossip grew around Blake allegedly attempting to wrest creative control of the film away from Jamie Heath and Wayfair Studios. As public curiosity skyrocketed, media outlets began reporting on a series of controversies. First, what was described as a tone-deaf and poorly executed marketing campaign led by Blake in coordination with Maximum Effort Productions and its principal, Ryan Reynolds. Then, Blake's decision to promote a domestic violence-centered film alongside her alcohol and hair care brands raised eyebrows. Things escalated further when her alcohol line sponsored an official promotional event and introduced a cocktail named after the film's male lead, a character who is notably a domestic abuser within the story. Coverage then shifted to Blake's alleged refusal to participate in press with the responding party and her exclusion of Heath from interview segments, photo calls, international premieres, panels, and screenings. Reports described her behavior as isolating and hostile, painting a picture of a campaign to alienate the cast and crew of the film. This narrative took on a life of its own online, spreading quickly as audiences began to question Blake's professionalism, intentions, and influence over the project. In other words, the backlash wasn't manufactured. It grew from the media storm surrounding decisions Blake visibly made and from tensions that were already simmering long before August 24th ever arrived. All of these factors together painted a sharply negative public image of Blake Lively and those aligned with her. And rather than softening the backlash, critics argue that her legal team has only intensified it. Their courtroom tactics, weaponizing language associated with domestic violence survivorship, invoking Darvo framing, and aggressively using subpoenas to intimidate influencers and suppress online criticism have come across to many as manipulative and retaliatory. It's almost as if every misstep, every controversy, every PR disaster was gathered, packaged, and tied off with a bow, then presented to the world through litigation. If Blake insists that all of this fallout was caused exclusively by Wayfair, then how does she reconcile the actions of her own attorneys? How does she explain the ongoing hostility her team continues to direct towards Justin Baldoni, both in filings and through strategic media pressure, while simultaneously claiming she is the one being targeted? If the true goal was to repair her reputation, filing this lawsuit was the exact opposite of strategic. Any reasonable legal advisor would have recognized that litigation invites scrutiny, not sympathy. Instead of controlling the narrative, Blake has opened the door to internal conflicts, behind-the-scenes dynamics, and alleged behavior on set now being documented, filed, and made public. Rather than clearing her name, the lawsuit has amplified the very issues she hoped to bury, painting not just a story of online backlash, but of a workplace environment shaped by tension, ego, and decisions involving Blake, Ryan Reynolds, and their influence over production. Every motion submitted, every argument made has only drawn more attention to the accusations she hoped no one would look at closely. You have to remember, before Blake entered this project, there were no major conflicts, no reported tension, no divided cast, no public explosions. Everything shifted the moment she was hired, and when you look at the pattern, the denominator becomes hard to ignore. The hostility originated with Blake. And the filing makes a point to highlight something people gloss over. The number one source of backlash wasn't social media rumor. It wasn't fan manipulation. It was the marketing. The marketing she and Ryan conceived through Maximum Effort Productions, Ryan's own company. So when we're talking responsibility, the finger doesn't just point at Blake, it points directly at Ryan and his machine. Because it was their idea to push a marketing campaign so off-tone that audiences recoiled. Their idea to produce that infamous 5-minute promo where Ryan played a jealous husband toward Brandon Sklenar, turning a fictional dynamic into something uncomfortably close to real-world DV mimicry. Viewers weren't overreacting. The skit leaned into jealousy, possession, control. It blurred reality and fiction in a film about domestic violence. And on top of that, Brandon wasn't even Blake's love interest in the movie. No romance, no kiss, no basis for the jealousy narrative, which made the skit even more bizarre. It felt like Ryan playing out insecurity with the world watching. It didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense now. Then comes the next piece. Unclean hands. A lot of people asked what that actually refers to, and the answer's blunt. They're alleging that Blake engaged in the same misconduct she accused Wayfair of. A smear campaign, weaponized publicly, legally, and strategically, aimed directly at Justin Baldoni and Wayfair. They claim she generated set conflict, isolated him from cast and crew, disrespected his religious beliefs, and fueled animosity that didn't exist before her involvement. They say she dismissed the series